my education is in design. So I graduated as a designer and kind of ran my own design firm. But I think the formal aspect of learning what learning looks like and understanding that started 21 years ago when I started Riverside. So from then on, I taught every single day. In fact, every single day for the first 8 years. So I started with my children being 6 years old in the first my oldest was 6-year-old. And then I took them every year. I'm trying to learn from them what it meant to learn. What does it mean to understand, to be motivated, to be engaged? So a lot of my experts really were the kids. Simultaneously, of course, I was consuming everything that had to be learned around education, reading the books, attending workshops. But I think my real ground reality and my real immersion and understanding of education came from the kids. And then taking them all the way till the first batch graduated sort of gave me an insight about early years, the adolescent years, the high school years. So I think keeping that journey of iteration, of understanding was a continuous journey across. So that really was my foray into teaching. I was, in fact, very lucky to have gone to my design college. I keep saying that I went to a very traditional school myself. I mean, it was command and control. That's all I understood. I didn't really kind of understand where my role was in the learning journey. But I remember walking into the doors of and the gates of my design college, the National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad. Oh, and I started breathing for the first time. I said, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to be. You know, teachers who lean in to listen to you. The idea of no hierarchy in the learner and the teacher. The idea of purpose and meaning. And joy. I mean, all of these ingredients, which was completely missing in my school education. And I think unbeknownst to me, those planted the seeds of the blueprint of what Riverside would be. And I thought to myself, my God, at 17, I experienced what learning looks like when you should experience it at 7. So I was very lucky to have that. And then, of course, the experience firsthand when I started the school. Well, I keep thinking that it's not really innovation as much as common sense. I keep thinking that itself is the most innovative. If you put common sense into common practice for some reason, suggest to people that it is innovation. The fact that children must engage with each other, they must have a voice, they must have a say in their learning is not innovative by any stretch of the imagination. The fact that we don't put it into practice on a daily basis, I find that is what possibly schools can learn from Riverside. How do you put common sense into common practice? And then how do you create processes that can be replicable and sustainable? So I think coming from a design field, again, codification became such an inherent part of capturing the insights and then codifying the process so that can be replicated and therefore then sustainable. So I think Riverside has done its greatest work in that. Whilst some of the processes might seem innovative simply because of the nature of how strong the student voice is in the design of these processes, a lot of it is just to help schools reimagine what a single day might look like. So our timetabling, I keep saying, is really the magic. When your timetable becomes your conscience, then it changes the way you look at time. Otherwise, we timetable for subjects. We don't timetable for relationships or relevance or rigor. So I think what we do is give a perspective of how you look at what your role as a teacher, as a school leader, as a parent is. And by providing them an opportunity to see what can be, we can then mimic what is or change what is. Right? I think that's really our way. If I give you one example of just some of the things that we do, a lot of it was influenced by NID, my design sort of experience. Simple things like a jury. Why doesn't the fact that a student can share their learning through a jury, rather than examination? Why can't I share to a jury of peers or adults or people that I'm unfamiliar with is what I've learned. That confidence I get in sharing as a jury, my work as a portfolio, is so deep and meaningful that I'm able to then shift the way you evaluate. So at Riverside, right from the early years, we have a jury system or a portfolio of work that we present at the end of the year, at the middle of the year, to show what we have learned. So our learning journey is captured not just as a monodimensional grading system, but a real plurality of the identity. So we've created several places where children can actually showcase or demonstrate their learning. So that's one, I would say, big piece that we actually worked on, to shifting from a monodimensional way of marks and grades to a more plural way of celebrating one's identity. I would say some other practices are really the whole idea of design thinking. Riverside is infused with design thinking as a process for solution discovery. So everything we do is built on empathy, starts with empathy. So we've created a very simple design thinking framework called feel, imagine, do, and share, right? You start with the feel and imagine before you do. So I think in most cases, schools love doing without really pushing the question on why and who. So at Riverside, we always start with the who and the why before we start with the do. So I think that, again, is a simple shift in the way you plan or the way you engage with your processes or your timetabling. Rather than just saying, what will I do? We ask who and why is it important? Who is it for and why is it important? That, I think, schools might benefit from when they see the way we use this framework to shape everything we've created at Riverside. So I think in many ways, those governing principles where the values shape the processes and then get timetabled is where Riverside has done its most important work. I would like to also make a distinction between different and making a difference. I think that's really important to understand the nuance. We're not making it different just for the sake of it, right? So our timetable reflects the fact that in every aspect or intentional way we've created opportunities or processes. It's at the attempt of making a difference, either to the self or to another, right? So let's take an example of a single day. Every day starts with relationships, right? We say we timetable first and foremost for relationships. So we've crafted a beautiful process called Conglom. It's the idea of coming together. In many ways, schools do say circle time or morning team meeting, right? It's similar to that. The only shift is the reflective practice that happens at the end of that morning meeting. So it's not like an assembly. Even in my school, we had an assembly. All of us gathered together and all of us sang devotional songs, pretty much that. Or we came to know about some, general knowledge. There was no reflection. There was nothing we had to learn from it, either about ourselves or each other. So the Conglom starts with that. The idea that if I feel better, I will file better. Or in another ways, if I start with the heart, the mind is ready to learn. Right. It's not rocket science, right? There's enough literature to suggest why that's so important and well-being followed. But we don't intentionally timetable for that. We often say, I can do a math class. This seems a waste of time because I can't measure it. So our idea of really intentionally starting with the heart starts there. Then that flows into something we design called agenda setting. The agenda setting is giving the child the voice to say, what will the day look like? Right. And especially in the early years, till probably the year 7 or year 8, that is my adolescence, children craft what the day looks like. What would they wish to do? What would they do? What is the most urgent thing? What would they like to learn? So that agenda setting is their voice and agency in crafting the day, right? That's, again, it's not like the timetable has been set in stone. It's like set in sand. And that means it's malleable and it's organic. And that's really important for children to feel a sense of ownership. After that, it flows into something called surplus. Surplus is a simple act of kindness that we do on a daily basis. It could be keeping the bathrooms clean. It could be, a sense of gratitude for lunch. So the act that every day I can leave in a small little measure the world a little kinder, right? That's then it goes into each session or the learning moments, which is the board protocol. Again, designed beautifully to inculcate relevance, rigor, and relationships. Otherwise, most sessions, I remember a teacher would walk in, turn her back to us, go onto the board and say, we are doing chapter 3. There was no relevance. We were not part of that. There were no relationships. And rigor was meaningless. Do 20 sums, right? 20 pages, there was no purpose in the rigor. So those ingredients craft every learning moment. And then by the end of the day, we have something called closing the loop. It's a reflective exercise to say, how was today? the intention that we started in the morning with the agenda, did we accomplish it? So the sense of accomplishment is very critical for children's well-being. But we never talk about accomplishment. We talk about results. And it's so different from accomplishments, right? So I think if you just look at a single day, it's been crafted with the idea that your values will shape your learning. And those will be actionable ways where we can show accomplishment. Again, not rocket science, but it's in the crafting and intentionality that we've created our timetable around.